Hi, my name is Soile, and you're listening to Heartland, a fan podcast from a fan perspective. Welcome back to the podcast. If it sounds like I'm sick, it's because I am, but the show must go on. And today I'm recapping episode 3 of season 17 with you guys. So let's get started. Stephanie said, I like this episode. I enjoyed seeing Jessica, finally. All we need now is to see Lisa. Love seeing Lou get her confidence back, although seeing her drink a protein drink and listening to music through her headphones was funny, as she obviously starts using the blender when Jack and Tim were trying to talk. Did anyone else notice how in one shot it looked like Lou took a drink from the cup, the behind angle, and the front shot, the glass is magically full again? Katie being adventurous with the dirt bike was really fun to watch. I hope the storyline continues and she makes some friends. Amy and Edwin's interactions were not exactly my favorite this episode. I can't see them anything but being friends, although the archery date idea is really cool and something different we don't usually see on Heartland. With that being said, I'm glad Amy realized she doesn't have feelings for him and he was upfront about the situation. He did look hurt, but I hope he'll be mature about it and not hold it against her. Logan working with the horse was fun to watch, and I do like him and Miley together. They make a cute couple. On another note, I was worried he rushed things with the horse a bit and something bad was going to happen at the rodeo, since he really only got the horse to be okay with the barrels for one run through and then called it a day. I think he was more worried about trying to impress Tim and prove to him he can fix the problem and not take things slowly. Something bad was bound to happen. I have a feeling this will be part of the conflict next episode, him lacking confidence that he can help horses. And of course, Lindy seeing an accident happen will probably scare her as well. The new character seems interesting. There was definitely some looks of interest directed at Amy. We shall see what happens there, if anything at all. Looking forward to next week. Then no context, Heartland said. It was nice to see Lou get back into the swing of things after the election, but I think it's hilarious that she's taking on another business endeavor because the writers were clearly looking for something for her to do. I hope we get to see Peter in town again soon. I want more of them in their happy/healthy era. Logan and Miley are cute, and the accident has me so stressed. I sense that he'll feel really guilty, both for her getting hurt and for the horse having a setback. He went against his gut instinct when he told Tim that he was ready, and I'm sure we'll get some aftermath of that in the next couple of episodes. Nathan Price Jr. is intriguing so far. I like that they're dropping little hints about a past, formerly writing pranks and him leaving school or town abruptly, from what Lou mentioned. I'm definitely interested to see more of him and learn about him as he connects with the Heartland family. It seems that there's some potential to connect with more of them than just Amy. Then Sprock said, very pleasant episode. Really not much to not like. Amy and Kayla's friendship was nice to see. The maturity they have towards each other. I liked the junior guy as he was concerned about his grandmother being at home alone all day. To me, that shows he has a good heart. And then Smoking Holsters replied, I think he was talking about his dog being alone all day, but I could be wrong. Then Sprock said, you were right, it was his dog. Then Dip commented, being concerned about his dog also means he has a good heart, in my opinion. Then HL Horses said, I like this episode a lot better than the first two, but can't really put my finger on why exactly. I thought Amy calling Shadow was cute, and Katie running Shadow was not expecting that. And we got more Amy and Katie interaction, which is nice. I really like Katie in this episode, especially when she calls out the biker on the trail. I appreciate them continuing to introduce non-horse stuff for Katie, as that's more realistic than the whole family wanting to be involved in horse things. I do hope she still writes, though. But something I did wonder was where is close enough for Katie to walk from the house, but also not on Jack's property for the bikers? Because you know he wouldn't allow that unless they are doing it without his permission, which I feel Katie would have said something. I also really like Amy and Caleb's whole storyline about single parenting and their conversations they had about it. This shows how good they are as friends and nothing more, even though it seems Caleb is feeling something for Amy. She did inadvertently shut him down, though, so our suffering for any Caleb and Amy romance is put off a bit. People have said this before, but Carson's actor looks way too old to play him. Carson should be at most 3.5 years old, but he's out here being the same size as Lindy. I also thought Donut was pretty cute. I will say though that that green short sleeve shirt that Caleb wore was not the look. It was really nice to see Jessica again, and I love the idea of Lou and Jessica teaming up. What a great pairing. Midlife Crisis Lou was so funny this episode. It was super funny when Tim was like, oh please, burden her. I love the scene where Lou negotiates the lease with Nathan. Such a boss business lady. I did like Amy's love life storyline this episode. I'm glad she could have this slow intro to dating again, where there's not much at stake, because she doesn't really like Edwin like that. I feel like the convo at the beginning with Logan and Amy could apply later in the season to Amy. It was nice to see Amy actually open to dating and having a fun on a date, even if I don't really ship Edwin and Amy. But I do wonder where she got that dress, as I'm not sure that's Amy's style. I also appreciate the little sister moment of Lou freaking out about Amy's date. I also really like that first interaction between Nathan and Amy in the field. We saw her riding Spartan, and it was just so beautifully shot. Their first conversation was good too. Nathan seems like an interesting character with some mystery of why he left school and his bronc riding past he didn't seem to want to talk about. I'm interested to see where their relationship goes. Again, the Logan storyline didn't really interest me, but Logan and Miley are cute. I did like Logan standing up to Tim, but I find it hard to believe Tim would let Logan work on his horse rather than Amy. It was good cliffhanger too, and will bring up good stories of Logan feeling guilty and Liddy being afraid of horses. I did appreciate the Torgy and the archery mention. It makes you believe they don't forget about things. The whole episode was so beautifully shot, so good job, Chris Potter. Next week should be interesting with the return of Shane to the ranch and talking to his sisters for the first time of what we've seen in like 12 years. Haha. Then Ori LT said, I love the friendship between Caleb and Amy in this episode. It was my favorite part of the episode to see them together and talking about their problems and be here for each other. I'm intrigued by this Nathan. Can wait to see more next week. Then Slister said, for the first time this season, I do not have a bad thing to say. This was a great episode. It was good to see a bit of Lou dealing with the aftermath of the election, but only a little. I appreciate that we had been told how much time had gone by for her perspective, had some laughs about it, and then watch her move on. This partnership between her and Jess will be something to watch. The horse plots were much better this time. I was afraid we were going to sell out on Donut like we have been doing all season, but I really like how that turned out. I also enjoyed the dynamic between Amy, Caleb, Lindy, and Carson. Much more natural than the one with Edwin and Rebecca. By now, we know I'm a huge Katie fan, and I think she made big moves this episode. Losing in the contest, but also learning from it. Finding her own appreciation for riding and the horses, different from the rest of the family, but still real. Sassing Top Gun on the trail and then riding herself. Love it all and the life Bay gives to the role. She is Lou's daughter without a doubt. First-hand experience is invaluable. Who says that? But I love her anyways. It was good to see Amy and Edwin have a proper date, with all the comedy gold that was included. Archery and hot dogs? Come on! I'd be taking her to the nicest restaurant in Calgary. Anyways, I love how that was portrayed. Cute, fun, and awkward. Amy not quite herself or quite comfortable, but making the best of it. Also, the surrounding scenes with Caleb. Amy seems much happier and more comfortable with him. I think I am now definitely Team Caleb, eventually. The prize beef still confuses me. A year to plot our next move? What's that going to be? Only time shall tell. All in all, like I said, great episode. Can't wait for the next week. Then Sharon said, another good episode. Amy thought she was a bit harsh with Caleb at first, but they resolved that. Caleb definitely has feelings for Amy. I think he felt that Amy was talking about him, but she was really talking about Edwin. I think she knew before their date that she wasn't romantically interested. So that's the end of that romance, which I think was never going to happen. Tim, still being a jerk. If he was upset about Price and using that as an excuse, then what was his excuse for being a jerk the first 16 years? Logan. He and Miley argued together. The horse Rocky is injured, that's why the accident happened, but he'll be very guilty and will question his ability with horses. Katie, having a second sentence with Amy? Wow, maybe things are looking up. Riding the dirt bike will be interesting, and I can see Ellie being jealous of Katie because of Brandon, who seems a nice, interesting next few episodes. Jessica using Lou to get her permits, and when she does and has to make a concession, she gets upset with Lou. Lou should have never had to apologize. Jessica should have apologized. Lou helping with Nathan Price. If she wasn't there would have been no deal. The way Amy looked at Nathan, there were sparks and disappointment when he said about his girl, but we all know his girl is his dog. Lindy seeing Miley's accident is setting up for the next episode. Archery was something new. Good to see Chris finally not stand with his hands in his pockets. I know it's for continuity, but that's why I don't see any sincerity in his character. Looking forward to next week. Then Deep said, Katie's first encounter with Brandon was reminiscent of Amy's first encounter with Ty. Even though Lou is a warrior, I expect that she will support Katie's interest in dirt bikes just as she supported Georgie's jumping and trick riding. I predict that Lou will have a dirt bike course built at Heartland, first to keep Katie as safe as possible, but also to help Katie make new friends. Lou did not mope around the house for very long as Gordon set in quickly. This new business venture with Jessica may not go smoothly considering the intensity of Jessica's reaction when Lou made a concession to the Heritage Committee without asking her first. In New York, Lou was subordinate to Jessica, so now they need to adjust to a new balance of power. Considering that Amy seemed to enjoy her archery date with Edwin, she certainly rejected him awfully fast. Because of her conversation with Logan and the fact that she could not give Edwin any sort of reason for her reaction, I'm not writing Edwin off just yet and guessing that she is holding out for a love at first sight scenario. It is a romantic notion, however, a slow and steady build is often the case for many couples. This brings me to Nathan Price Jr., Heartland's new neighbor. He's definitely good looking and appears to love his dog. We know that he was in school with Lou, but left suddenly under mysterious circumstances. In episode 1, Jack and Tam felt that Heartland was being targeted in a personal way. Now we know that it was not the old man, but Junior doing these things. Is he just a ruthless businessman, or is it personal for him as well? This may be a shot in the dark, but could Nathan have a grudge against Lou, and will he be the one to dredge up the event from her past that she never told anyone? I will end off with poor Miley lying unconscious in the dirt and hopefully not seriously injured. I suspect that Rocky has an injury on his body that is sensitive to the touch, and unfortunately, Miley applied pressure on it while bear racing. Logan will be burdened with guilt for not detecting the problem. Hopefully, Lindy will get more help getting over the trauma and witnessing her hero's accident than Lou seems to have gotten after witnessing her dad's. Then 1979 Walnut said, A lot going on in episode 3. Piers, Logan, and Miley are on their way to a romance. I think they make a great match. The chemistry is there. As for Katie, she is just trying to find her way, and give her time, things will work her way. I think the writers are going in the right direction with Logan and Miley instead of pushing Katie and Logan because of the age difference. Lou is trying to find her way too after losing to Rick, and Tim is right in telling her to move on instead of moping around the house and helping Jessica will help Lou. Amy's moving on from Edwin, and I think most viewers are in favor of Amy moving on from him. The date was awkward, and Amy was cold, and she realized she had no romantic feelings for Edwin. You have to feel sorry for Caleb. He's really trying hard to have a relationship with his son after the divorce and trying to make Carson's birthday a success by getting the pony rideable. I see the storyline as a setup for the trailer kiss scene later on in episode 5 or 6. Amy is also feeling sorry for Caleb and she will do anything to help Caleb, which gets her caught up in the moment that leads to the kiss. I think they will realize in the end they don't have romantic feelings for each other and realize they only can be friends in the end. Amy also mentions a foreboding comment to Caleb that could be seen as a sign of things to come. Amy said, "Easy to fool yourself, though. Sometimes you want something to be right, even though deep down you know it isn't." I don't see Caleb and Amy becoming a couple, period. Lastly, it appears Tim, Jack, and Nathan worked a deal on the grazing land for a year, and Nathan comes off as not a bad guy, and we will find out a lot more about Nathan. I think by the end of the season, we will see Amy and Nathan have an attraction for each other, and that 1 year deal will be a lot longer than a year. Note, I believe we saw Nathan's girl when Amy and Nathan first met when riding with his dog. Then Smoking Holster said, "Not sure what to make of this episode, though this feeling might have to do with the whole Caleb slash Amy hoopla. That's all the rage on the socials, so I'll start with that. Caleb and Amy are a bad match. Full stop. First off, he's not a single parent, although based on his description of not remembering things like dental appointments, he'd probably be bad at it. Let's remember that Cass isn't dead or out of the picture, and although I don't think we've heard it, but my bet is that Cass is Carson's primary caregiver. It's also really weird that apparently Cass and Amy have no contact at all. Perhaps someone should remind the writers that Cass and Amy were friends, and the whole idea that they have no contact at all really needs some explanation. I keep reading that Caleb's always been there for Amy, and there's never really an answer to my question, which is name some of those instances because I really can't remember them. He was certainly always there to back Ty up, be where and when he was ever supportive of Amy, aside from doing what he could to get into her pants in season 2. I'm glad Amy fixed Donut, but honestly, the whole reason there was a problem to begin with was Caleb being an idiot trying to basically bribe his son to like him. I mean, we really don't have the story about the divorce or his relationship with his son, but I really can't be sad for him until we know what they'll never tell us. I love Logan and Miley as a couple. I'm sorry about the accident, but what I don't understand is why Amy isn't checking his work. Seriously, it's one thing telling your prodigy that you think he's ready to help a horse, and another telling him that he's completely on his own. I guess based on Lindy's expression when Miley fell, and the blurb from next episode, that we know why she's upset. Lou and Jessica. Does anybody think this will actually work out? I'm glad Lou got out of the house, but really, I get she lost the election, but she has two businesses, one of which needed Peter when she was running for office, and now doesn't seem to need her? Huh? Also, what about the Dude Ranch? What am I missing? Anyone see Ty driving past Amy in the pilot and Simon driving past Katie in this episode as a thing? It was interesting seeing Katie control Ranger at that point and not getting thrown through considering we're led to believe she's not a horse girl. I guess we'll see what comes of this and Lou's reaction since I'm going with riding a motorcycle all padded up might not be as dangerous as trick riding. I do have a funny feeling that the bike group might be more adventurous than we're used to. I found Nathan to be an interesting and thoughtful character. Glad there's no older prize involved, and I hope it stays that way. Also glad that they made a deal. His part in the show and possibly with Amy should be fun to watch, and I have a funny feeling that his dog will have a place in them getting together. Guess we'll see how that goes in the end. Oops, forgot the date, probably because it was so memorable. And then the crying laughing emoji. Krampus rule number one. When you arrive to pick up your date and she's wearing a pretty dress, the archery range, and a hot dog is probably not what she was expecting. I'm glad she let him down when and how she did, and I'm literally dumbfounded by fans who constantly call her out for leaning on men, which in this show includes just smiling, and now describe her as cold and heartless for just coming out and saying, I'd rather just be friends. Then Mike Langione said, I was never a big fan of Edwin, but I'm not sure I like the way Amy dumped him. She did encourage him to go out. Okay, then few of my thoughts. I wasn't sort of feeling the episode during my first viewing. I think for the most part it had to do with the Amy Caleb scenes and the underlying tension. But on the second viewing, I enjoyed it much more. And I feel like looking away during Amy and Caleb scenes definitely helped. But this episode had a lot of storylines, and I felt like it was much longer than the episodes usually are because of it. But I like that it was able to balance them all out and also move the plot along. I'm gonna talk about Amy's storyline first. I'm not a fan whenever someone drops off a horse and is like, "Oh, can you make this work? I only have like a couple of days." Like, why can't they just, have a scheduled appointment instead of being like, "Please, Amy, please, can you do this?" I don't know. It's just getting old after 17 years. Now, I'm not really a horse expert, but I've been riding in the past. I was a horse girl during my teenage years, but when I saw them riding that pony, I felt like there should have been a weight limit. I'm not saying Amy and Caleb are that heavy, but I feel like they're at the limit. I just felt bad for the pony. I almost thought that the problem with him is that he's being written by these adults. But anyways, I don't think the storyline itself, like Amy working with the pony, was that interesting. But I think it did offer an opportunity for Amy and Caleb to talk about, being parents and how hard it can be. And while I don't like the Caleb Amy pairing, I did like that Caleb sort of voiced the concerns I've had with him as a parent ever since Carson was born, which are my main reasons why he's not compatible with Amy. So while I did not like Caleb sort of trying to draw Amy in, I did like that they had those conversations about parenthood. But I do agree with Caleb that it seems like Amy is just being a perfect parent and she hardly ever does anything wrong, and Lindy is just like this perfect kid. And obviously there's some storylines coming up with Lindy, so I am hoping that maybe it'll allow Amy to sort of mess up a little bit even. I'm not saying anything major, but just something, because I'm not a parent, but I believe that it's one of the hardest jobs in the world. So I would like to see that with Amy. Also, while I was never, buying into the whole Amy and Edwin relationship or the dating thing, I'm really glad that they did this, because this is a way for Amy to get familiar with the dating scene again, and where I don't even think she's ever been part of that. So I think these are important steps for Amy, even though in a way it feels like a waste of time because they were never going to work out. But I feel like these are important scenes for Amy, and not only to sort of know what she wants, but also to know what she doesn't want. And on paper, Amy and Edwin could have worked. It's like Lou said, like they like horses. He's not threatened by her success and all that. Their kids get along really well. But, if the romantic tension isn't there from both of them, like, what's the point? And I think it's important to show those things as well. Like, you could think it could work out, but if that's something, the X factor isn't there, there's nothing you could really do about that, because it's like Amy said, like, if you're trying to force it, it's never gonna really be something you wanted, but it's just something you do because you feel like you have to. And while I think the date with Edwin was sort of random, it showed her that she likes hanging out with him as a friend. But as soon as they were in the truck, he was dropping her off, and there was this like moment like, should there be a kiss or what's gonna happen now? She realized, oh, like dating isn't actually what I want to do with Edwin. I like hanging out with him, but just imagine kissing him just doesn't feel right with me. And then it sort of escalated from there. And I think she did handle it pretty well. Like, obviously, it's not a good outcome for Edwin. But at the same time, in this day and age, a lot of people leave people hanging and ghost them and all that. So I do think that Amy's, honestly, while she wasn't really sure what was missing, or why she was feeling the way she was feeling was confusing to him, I think it's probably more than what most women would do with him. So I don't know. I think while the relationship didn't really go anywhere beyond this state, it was one of those things where you sort of have to see it through to know that it's not working out. And I don't think Amy was leading him on. Like, she didn't know if she wanted it, so she had to see it through. Like, that's what dating is, isn't it? Like, people don't go out on dates and be like, this will end up in marriage no matter what I feel. Dating is the process of trying to understand if this is what you want, if this would work out, and all that. So I think there was nothing out of the ordinary here, but I feel like, especially with this fandom, there's very old school people, and it's sometimes hard for me to sort of understand those people because we live in different worlds, and I feel like they don't really understand that Amy doesn't necessarily share that reality with them. Like, she's a modern woman, so she's gonna behave as such. As for Lou, I've enjoyed seeing her sort of trying to come back from losing the election. It's definitely open opportunities for her, but I'm also hoping that while she has the business going on with Jessica, there's room for the Dude Ranch and Maggie storylines, because they are her babies while this is Jessica's baby. But that being said, the Lou and Jessica storyline, I think it'll be interesting because we are meant to believe that these people have a long history together. Lou was working for Jessica, and we've heard about it. We've seen them interact a little bit ever since Jessica arrived to the show. But I feel like Jessica's storylines have mostly been about Tim or her photography. So it'll be interesting to me to see how they will work together, especially now that they're supposed to be equally balanced or something like that. We already saw a little bit of Jessica being like, you should do what I'm telling you, and Lou sort of being happy to do a favor because it's sort of the dynamic they've become used to in the past. But now this is a new chapter for them, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how that will go. Also, I know that The Last of Us, the HBO show, was filmed in Alberta. Some parts were filmed in High River as well. So seeing one of the sets being used in Heartland instead of them using the locations that I've come to know through Heartland was a nice reverse for once. I'm also getting a feeling that Lou will be more involved with the family business this season, and I feel like there was some foreshadowing last season when Jack sort of assumed that Amy will pick up the family business after, he finally retires, and Lou sort of getting hurt by that. Like, I think we've seen Lou helping herding the cow battle in the behind the scenes pictures, and this episode showed her taking part of the negotiations with Nathan Price Jr. And I feel like she was needed in that meeting. If it would have been just Jack and Tim, then they wouldn't have gone anywhere with that. They wouldn't have gotten the deal, I feel like. But Lou was sort of able to be the thing between the two parties in order to make them have a deal together. So I've really enjoyed seeing some wins for Lou for once. Also, speaking of Nathan, I'm really interested about his character. I think they did a really good job of getting us hooked to know more about him, like why did he leave the school? Why did he stop prank writing? And, what's the deal with him overall? I've never seen the actor Spencer Lord in anything before, so I don't really know what he's like as an actor, but I feel like he was really able to create this mystery around the character really well. He sort of seemed almost sad in some ways or melancholic, which should be interesting, especially considering that Amy is gonna be involved with his character. Like, will Amy be able to sort of bring different side out of him? And then in return, Amy will feel something different. So yeah, I think this will be interesting, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of his character. As for Katie in this episode, I'm sort of, I don't know, like, I like her character, first of all. I like that she's trying her own things outside the family. Obviously, the dirt biking wasn't her thing, but then she's trying it out. It wouldn't have been the connection I would have made for the character, but I'm trying to keep an open mind because it's like she said, like she's stepping out of the comfort zone. So maybe this will be an interesting storyline. I personally am not a big fan of dirt bikes or motorcycles or anything like that, but I'm trying to give it a chance because if they're able to bring out a good storyline out of this, then I'm all aboard. Also, I noticed what some of you guys had said as well, that Brandon and Katie meeting for the first time, it really reminded of the scene where Ty drives into Heartland and Amy sort of scolds him for driving that fast around horses or whatever that line was. But I'm getting a better feeling for Brandon because even though he was being a jerk at first, at least it felt like he was being more considerate later on. So I'm also interested to see where that will lead as well. As for Logan, I sort of feel like he's a good backup to bring more horror storylines to the episodes. Like his clients aren't that exciting compared to what Amy always does, but it shows that some of the stuff that they do at Heartland is just sort of basic stuff. I'm also curious to see how the storyline will evolve in next episodes, seeing that Rocky wasn't actually ready to go back to work, and that probably bleeding into Logan's confidence and his relationship with Amy, Tim, Miley, Lindy, possibly. Like, you could go to many different ways. I'm sort of hoping that maybe Lou will be the one to help Amy with Lindy because she's been through that sort of situation with Tim, and I think she, of all people, would understand better than anyone what Lindy is going through right now. Also, I'm getting a lot of Get Bailey energy from Miley. And while most of the fandom hated Kit, I enjoyed her and I would have liked to see more of her. So seeing that Logan sort of reminds me of early seasons Ty, except he's much more calmer. And then Miley reminds me of Kit. It's sort of like a parallel universe of seeing what could have possibly been if Ty would have stayed together with Kit. I also found it weird how Tim was lurking around and just sort of there whenever there was a moment between Logan and Miley, almost as if he came out of thin air or something. But then it was nice to see that when Tim was pushing Logan, he pushed back. Because we see this a lot with Tim and Amy. Like, Tim needs her help, but she says no. But then he insists that she needs to do this, and then she does it. But Logan was like, no, I know what I'm doing, and sort of like saying back off. And then when things evolved, Tim realized that he had pushed him and apologized. Even though that's a small step, I feel like that shows that Tim can grow, even though sometimes he repeats his old habits. Also, when has Tim ever cared that Amy has had a full slate? I think this was the first time. Overall, I feel like this is a nice setup for the next episodes. I feel like especially the story around Lindy and Logan should be interesting in next episode. And speaking of next episode, shall we look into what we're in for? Episode 4 is called A Piece Apart, and the synopsis says Amy must deal with Lindy's sudden fear of horses. Logan blames himself for Miley's accident. Tim enlists the family to make Shane's return to Heartland perfect, while Katie struggles with the friendship. It sounds like it should be a big ensemble of characters. So should be interesting to see how this blend of characters will interact with each other in the next episode, which airs tomorrow if you're listening this on Saturday. But until next week, keep your noses clean and your powder dry, as they say. See you next week. Bye.